Sometimes I think I got things all figured out, and then I realize I don't got nothing figured out. Last Sunday I talked about becoming discombobulated, and I said, someday when you have one of those days, just come by the church and just come and sit here and relax. So one of you took me seriously and came here to relax. And he walked through the door, and he's just out of sorts. He said, Don, I got up this morning like I try to do, and I had everything in place. I had a meeting at work. My spouse is out of town, so I had the kids all in place. And I was so excited, and I get in my garage, and I push the button, and the garage door doesn't open, and I can't get out. And then by the time I get someone to borrow a car, I got to work, and I was getting my stuff done, and the phone rings. And it's the school nurse who says my daughter's sick. And I said, well, can't you call that other person out? And he said, nope, no one else is home. It's all yours. So I had to go to school. And so my day just was shot. And so I just thought I'd come here and take your advice and come in here and sit and look at the cross and laugh at myself and say it's just one of those days. And it can be that way about life too, How was your day yesterday, by the way? How was your week? And how's your month been? I think of All Saints Sunday, and of course in the Hispanic tradition it's the Day of the Dead. And I do get sentimental because I see all the candles and I read the names of your loved ones, all the people that have molded us and inspired us and annoyed us and made us happy. And what about your journey? Who are the people in your life that have made the most difference in who you are today? I thought I had it figured out when I was in seminary. We used to have these groups that met, especially just before we're graduating and going to our first church. And we'd sit around and we'd talk about a kind of a plan. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 15 years? And they would say, well, the average stay at your first church is 5 to 7 years. How did that work for me? And then they talked about, chances are in your ministry, on the average, you'll be at 3 or 4 or 5 different churches during your lifetime. And then I said, well, I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to preach. I can do that. I'm going to teach catechism. I'm going to visit people. And then they said, on the average, ministers spend 5 or 6 hours a week in their office preparing their sermon. Well, you can tell that don't happen here. So I had it all ready. And then I came here. And there were a lot of things that I wasn't taught. Like, how do you pay bills when there's not enough money? What do you do about a leaky roof? Who do you call when the furnace goes out? Who's going to set up all those tables and chairs? What about just the stress of getting through an ordinary day? And half the stuff I did wasn't in any of the books there. I spent 4 years reading books about God. And I realized that, and you know what it's like in your job. All of you have worked at one time or another. You may be working, maybe retired, and you can spend 75% of your time doing stuff you were never taught to do, but you do it because that's what you got to do to get through the day. It has nothing to do with being Lutheran or Methodist or Baptist. It's just doing what you got to do to get through the day. And sometimes, when we make plans, God's up there snickering. You think you got plans. I got plans that you don't even know about. And I've discovered that life is not about my plan. Life is about the journey that we share together. And God, He's not in a book. God's not in a building. He's not in any one religion more than another. God is in the very fiber of daily life itself. That's where God lives and speaks. And I realize you know what it's like. I bet you all had moments when you went this way instead of this way. And because you went that way, it changed your life forever. Because things can happen. I was driving down Southwest Highway the other day, and I was remembering there was an article in the paper last weekend. It was kind of like the year anniversary when one of our members, Tom, and his wife, they go jogging like 3 times a week in the Forest Preserve. And Tom is a regimented guy. I mean, he runs certain paths, certain days. Oh, because of whatever, he ran on Friday instead of Thursday. And he's running in one of the trails off 119th Street in the woods, and he turns left instead of turning right, and he comes across a guy who's face down in the horse trail. And Tom thought for sure he was dead. But he couldn't have been there long because his wife went by there. She's a lot faster than he is. So Tom drops to his knees, turns him over, sees his cell phone, dials 911. And for 20 minutes until the ambulance got there, all he did was press on the guy's chest. Just said it was the longest 20 minutes of his life. When they took him away, he just figured he was gone. Luckily, Tom knows a doctor at Palos, and he was able to find out that the guy had survived. And it was not till weeks later that Tom got a phone call. And she said, "My name is Emily, and I just want you to know I'm the wife of the guy, and you saved his life." That random turn has changed his life and their life because they've become friends. He's still rehabbing, but he's going to make it. And now they're linked together forever just because of one right turn. So since I'm driving south on Southwest Highway reminiscing about what happened a year ago, I knew that one of your brothers was at Manor Care. And I had visited him a while back, but I thought he was at Manor Care. So there's a Manor Care about every 3 blocks. But there's one, so I pull in the parking lot and I discover that he's there. And I go into his room and he's a really big guy and he hasn't been out of bed and he's not going to get out of bed for a long time. And he kind of goes like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I don't know, came to see you." We held hands and we prayed. He's a really, really good Catholic. And I realized after leaving his room that that wasn't about being a good Catholic or a good Lutheran. It was about being human and turning right instead of just going straight ahead. So I get out of his room and the phone rings, and it's Debbie, my secretary. And she said, "I got a weird phone call." I said, "What else?" She said, "This nurse calls me and says that there's someone at Palos Hospital that knows you. And it's in room 42 or whatever." And she said, "What's the person's name?" "I can't tell you because of the hippa-jippa-dippa-doo," whatever that is. So I'm thinking to myself, I got to get home. But I'm by Palos Hospital, so I might as well go there. My day has already been weird. So I go in there, and I go in the room. I walk in the room, and there is Janine, who's been working at Silver Lake Country Club for 40 years, planned stuff like we're doing tonight. And in that room are 20 people, her sons and daughters and spouses and friends, and her mom is dying in the bed. And so I walk in there and have a few hugs, and we circle the bed, we hold hands, we say the Lord's Prayer. I give what I call, because I'm a Lutheran, I do second to last rites. And we had a nice prayer, and we found out that 2 days later, she was gone. But it was an incredibly spiritual moment because I walk into this room to somebody I didn't know whose name was, and I had married all of her kids at one time or another. And I thought to myself, a random phone call, you turn left, and what do you discover? I got back to church after that, and I just sat in here. And you know what it's like. You just kind of sit down and you think about your journey. And I'm reminded, all of us have plans. We all have plans. But before we have plans, we have a journey. And our journey has all kinds of seasons. And I realized that God is in there somewhere. Actually, God is in there everywhere. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.